Hello, this is Dr. Robertson, the volunteer librarian for OSCAR, coming to you with part 2 of my updated 2025 version of the introduction to and use of the eForm generator that is built into OSCAR. In part 1, we looked at a PDF that was emailed to me, downloading that into my folder, and then opening the PDF up first in something called GIMP, which is the GNU image manipulation program. In that program, we created a PNG from the PDF and took page 1 and flattened it. Then once we had performed that, we saved it to my eForm generator folder. We then took page 2 and opened up page 2 in Photoshop, which is another image manipulation program. And in Photoshop, we did the same thing with page 2 as we'd done with page 1. We flattened it, we converted it to a PNG, and created the appropriate size of the image, and then saved it to my eForm generator folder. We then went into OSCAR, to administration, navigated to the image library, and downloaded page 1 and page 2 into the image library. At the end of my first video, we had gotten as far as getting to creating eForms and opening up the eForm generator. And this is where I'm going to start for part 2. So here we are again in the scheduling page of OSCAR. We're going to go to administration. We're going to go to manage eForms. And in manage eForms, we're going to go to create an eForm and open up the eForm generator. Now, as you recall from my first video, I had saved 2 PNG files, image files, to my eForm generator folder on my computer. This is the first page, and this page ends without a number. And then you can see the second page ends in -2. So when I'm uploading these 2 pages to the eForm generator, I need to upload them in the correct order. If you only have a 1-page eForm, obviously that's not important. But what is important is remembering the name of the image that you're going to try to upload so that you can find it in your image folder where you stored it after you created it. So now let's expand all. Let's go into load image and choose an image. And I'm just going to start typing. The first 3 letters were CMS. You can see at the bottom there, screener -2 is there. So I'm just going to CMS -U. And if we go to CMS, we've got the page 1 and page 2 here. I'm going to select page 1, and I'm going to call it page 1. We're going to load this image. And now we can start adding our inputs onto this page. I'm just going to collapse the load image section because we will come back to that later. We're going to create a name for this. So let's call it the Mood Disorder Questionnaire 2025. And now we can collapse that. Now it asks if we have any gender boxes or radio boxes. And gender boxes obviously are to name the gender of the patient. That's not present in this form, but if it was, we would add either gender checkboxes or gender X boxes. I tend to be using X boxes with most of my forms because they appear sharper when we're faxing. And if you used gender X boxes, it would ask you to click and then click the male and then click the female. If there's other boxes that you need to add here, we can do this later separate from the eForm generator. But we do have radio boxes because all of these answers are yes and no. So we are going to want to choose one of these, but not two of these. Again, we're going to put boxes in here, but at a later stage, we can edit our boxes to become circular. But for now, we're going to put radio boxes in. Now, a little trick here. I like to go down actually to where it talks about formatting the input boxes. And this is for all of your inputs, including your radio boxes, looking at font size. And I tend to use 14. It's larger and easier to read. So before I put the radio boxes in, I'm actually going to go down here and change the font size. Once I've got to that, we're going to collapse that for a minute. We're going to go back up here to the radio X boxes, and we're going to click here. And it says to use a unique name for each series. So I'm going to look here at the first question, and I'm going to choose a word from the first question and then use that as my unique name. So I'm going to choose hyper. And then I'm going to click on here, and then I'm going to click on both these boxes. Next, I'm going to go and do this with all of my radio boxes all the way down. Now, as you can see, I've skipped ahead a bit here and started filling out some of these radio boxes, but I'm getting down to the bottom of the page here. So I'm just going to go over to the side here, and I'm just going to scroll down a little bit so I can see a bit more of this. And then we'll get to the rest of these radio boxes. And one more trick here. You'll notice that I am getting further down this page, and I'm in danger of scrolling so that I cannot see my radio boxes as easily on the side here. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to expand the load image and expand the eForm name, and that will just push this down a bit further. So when I scroll down to the bottom of the page, it's a little bit easier for me to see all of these. So I'm just going to go on here and do the rest of the radio boxes, and then we will jump ahead. And now you will see I've got all the way down to the bottom of the page, and I've filled out all the radio boxes. Scrolling back up to the top of the page here, if we scroll back and forth, you can see that I'm not perfectly aligned with all of these boxes. And for those of us with OCD, it would be nice to be able to align boxes so that they all fit together. And in the eForm generator, there is a way to do that. We're going to collapse a few things down here. And we're going to go to number 6 here, where it talks about fine tuning. And I'm just going to expand the fine tuning here. And this is a bit tricky because they're named just in the order which you created the boxes. But if we do remember the order that we created the boxes, then it should be that page 1.1 and page 1.3 would be the first two yeses. So if those are correct, and we align them to the left, we should actually see the second yes box shift a bit to the left. And that's in fact what happened. So then all of the odd numbered boxes are going to be the yeses, and we can align all of the odd numbered boxes. So I've checked all of the odd numbered boxes down to 27, which gets me all the way down to the item to check yes if more than one of these has happened at the same time. And I'm going to align all of these boxes to the left. And there all of my boxes have lined up to the left. Now, if I want to, I can remember that I got to 28 here, so this should be 29, 30, 31, and 32, which means that 33 and 35 here should also be yes answers. And now I can align them as well. And they've all bumped over maybe a little bit farther than I want them to, but I still have them all collected, so I can actually nudge them slightly back to the right. So let's just nudge once here, and that's probably a reasonable alignment, so we can just leave them all set up like that. I'm also going to do something similar with the vertical alignment as well. So we're going to go up here and we're going to uncheck all of these. And now I want to make sure that, for instance, 1 and 2 are aligned and 3 and 4 are aligned. But first, actually, we have a second line here of boxes, all the no's. So let's pick the even numbers down to 28. And then I also picked number 34 and number 36. And we're going to align all of these to the left as well and straighten out like that. And again, if we look at that, it probably could be nudged just slightly to the right. So let's just nudge that back and maybe a second time there. And now all of those are lined up. Now that we've done that, we can uncheck all of those and we can check 1 and 2, and we can either align them up or align them down. 1 and 2 look like they might be slightly high, so let's align them down and let's nudge them down. And now those look like they're pretty much where I want them to be. We can do this with all the rest of these boxes. And you can see I've got down to 15 and 16 here. And this is the line you had much more energy than usual. And those are a little bit further down. So the question is, do I just need to nudge them or do I need to shift them? So let's try shifting them up and see how far up they go when I shift them. And that's obviously too far. So we can shift them down again and then nudge them up. So let's shift them down. and then we can nudge them up. And then we can go down the rest of them and align them. And now I'm remembering that this last box here was 28, which means that 29 and 30 and 31 and 32 are these four boxes here. And we can align those four boxes up, and then we can nudge them up. And now I see that I probably want to move 29 just slightly to the right. And the rest of these, except for maybe 31. 31, a slight nudge to the right. Oops, that wasn't the one I wanted. I wanted 32. So, all right, let's nudge that back. And now let's go to 32. And now I think we're lined up pretty well. So now I can collapse the fine tuning here. And now we can actually get to some of the regular input boxes. So if we look at the top here, name and date, let's fill in the name of the patient and the date. If we go to add in form input fields one by one, we can expand that. And for the name and the date, those will be single line text inputs. If we want a label, for instance, we would want a multi-line text input. Or if we had a multi-line address, something like that, that would also be a multi-line text input. And then if we have individual X boxes or check boxes that aren't radio boxes, we can also put those in one by one. So let's go back to single line text input. And we want to go from the Oscar database here because we're going to put the patient's name in. So we're going to scroll down, and we can either put in first, last name, or if we put patient name in, it'll put the last name in and then a comma and then the first name. So depending on what your preference is, let's do patient name. And then we're going to keep it at S14 for the font size. The background color we do want to be transparent. And then we're going to actually ask for a custom unique name because that will then put patient name in that box. And then what we need to do is follow the instructions here where it says drag a box from the top left corner to the bottom right corner. So if I go over here to name and I start there and then I drag down to here. Sorry. Actually, I was wrong here. If I go to automatic sequential naming and I have used patient name here, then it will actually put patient name in. So let's try that again. And we will draw right to there. And now let's check and make sure, in fact, that we did get patient name as the name of that field. So we're going to expand and look at the bottom here. And yes, in fact, that is named patient name. Now, if we felt that that was too tall, if we needed to manipulate it, we can change the height and the width of this. So say we thought that was a little bit too high and we wanted to decrease the height, we can, select on patient name and decrease the height. Now you can see that the decrease in the height happens actually at the bottom of the field, not at the top of the field. So then if we felt that we had decreased the height, but we needed to put the line in the proper position, we can now nudge this down. So the line is where we want it to be. And we're going to do the same thing for date here. So we're going to scroll up here. We're going to collapse that down for a second. We're going to go up to here, and we're going to go to today. So date is today. So then, again, automatic naming sequence. Following the directions, click on the top left corner. Drag a box from the top left corner to the bottom right corner. So let's do that again. Now, this is obviously not aligned with the name, so I am going to want to fine-tune here. And the patient name and today I want to align down. And then it looks to me as though the date is a slightly smaller field than the name. So then the question is, do we make the date smaller or the name bigger? For today's purpose, let's just make the today slightly bigger. So we're going to increase the height. And now they look like they're pretty much exactly the same. Now we can unselect all, or we could just unselect today. So let us uncheck all. If you ever put a box or something in the wrong page, you can delete them one at a time. We're going to collapse. And then I'm going to talk to you about a couple of other things that don't particularly apply to this form, but will apply to other forms that you make. So we're going to collapse out of the input fields. And we haven't talked about signatures at all. So we can expand here. We can add a signature stamp. We can add a signature box. Or we can add a freehand signature to the field. Now, a signature stamp basically works if you have prearranged the names of your signatures. We'll get into that a little bit later, but let's have a look here at adding a classic signature box. And then click here and drag it around the signature area. So let's put a signature at the bottom here. And you'll notice earlier that there's a certain part of this eForm that I can't actually put stuff into. If I'm right out to the edges, it won't allow me to do that. So that's a classic signature box that we've added. Now, let's say that we changed our mind and we actually want a freehand signature field. Well, then let's go to fine-tune the input fields, and let's get rid of the classic signature box by deleting it. And then let's change our mind and go here and click on freehand signature box. Now we have some choices. Our signature color, we tend to use black. You don't obviously have to do that. Some people like having a line under the signature, but you don't need that necessarily. The boundary type and the boundary color. So what displays to tell you where to sign in can be dotted or solid and blue. So I tend to use the standards here, but obviously there are other choices for yes, no for the black, blue, green, red signature line. And if you want, you could certainly put red there and sort of highlight that if you felt that was important. You can have a dotted, dashed, solid, double, or groove boundary type. And of course, again, you can choose different colors for your boundary. I'm going to leave these all the same. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go down, and where I deleted out the other signature box, now I'm going to put a signature box in like that. Now, this signature box only gives you a certain size because the height and the width are connected to each other. So if you need a bigger signature length, you would need to make a bigger signature width. I think that's about enough for part 2. When we go to part 3, we're going to start looking at how we export things. So we come down past our fine-tuning. We can talk about the miscellaneous options, and we can talk about adding the rest of these bits and then going on to generating the eForm for final production. Thank you for listening. See you soon for part 3.